Good evening. First off, I want to say thank you for the 3 views of the Eternal Darkness epilogue, which showed all the other cutscenes from the other alignments chosen. I actually kind of find it a bit funny that I got more views than the finale stream that had me fighting the final boss. But then again, that's on me because I beat the game on a Sunday night. A little bit late at night, but still worth it. So, I was thinking about what I could stream today, and I did have a couple of ideas based on GameCube games that I saw. But usually what I like to do is, this year aside, because it's been non-stop Resident Evil for the past, what, since like December? I've streamed Resident Evil 2 original, Resident Evil 3 original, Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake, Resident Evil The Umbrella Chronicles, and then I finally broke away with that with Killer 7 and Resident Evil, no, not Killer, and Eternal Darkness. So it's been a lot of M-rated stuff. So then so usually what I do when I beat a game that, takes multiple streams, is I like to do like a little one-off or two-parter. So I was thinking, because I do have an idea of what I want to stream the next like long-term game, and I do have multiple ideas, actually. Some games I've never played before, some games that I haven't played in decades. And then I thought, one game that I did want to play that I just never got the chance to around the time that Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie came out, the Sonic Advance games, specifically the first two. Because, to give a bit of a history lesson, and I want to say it was March of 2001, Sega, creator of the Genesis, the Saturn, the Dreamcast, officially discontinued making their own consoles. The Dreamcast was their last console. 24 years ago. And they officially went third party as a result, making games at the time for the PlayStation 2, the Xbox, the GameCube, and the Game Boy Advance, which is crazy to think about, but there was a time where Sonic games were only playable on Sega Genesis and the Dreamcast. So the very first game that Sega released after the Dreamcast was discontinued was a game on the Game Boy Advance called Sonic Advance. The first of a trilogy, sadly not ever re-released, not even on the Wii U back when it had a Game Boy Advance Virtual Console, for reasons I honestly don't know about. This was one of the first games I ever got on the Game Boy Advance, since it came out later in the year in 2001, and I enjoyed it. I will say that it was kind of a letdown in a way, because this game, for me, was right after playing memories, rather, of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which at the time was my favorite, and it still is, like, one of my favorite Sonic games. So going from Sonic 3 and Knuckles to Sonic Advance is a bit of a rough transition. It's kind of like going from Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens. Two very different movies made at very different times that have their pros, but also it's just kind of very strange to go between them. So I thought, I do want to stream this, and then the question is, how do I stream it if it's a Game Boy Advance game? Well, the answer is simple. Back in 2003, I believe, I got a Game Boy Player. The Game Boy Player allows you to play Game Boy Advance games on the TV. It's kind of like the Switch before the actual Switch, where you can play games on the go, but you can also play them on the TV. And even then, the Game Boy Player is the predecessor? No, the predecessor of the Game Boy Player was the Super Game Boy, which sadly we have not gotten a re-release in any form, which is a shame because it also enhanced certain games like Donkey Kong 94, which is now out on Switch Online. This is not an advertisement for that, or the Donkey Kong Lands, or even the Pokemon games. So, on that note, this is probably going to be a one-off, because I remember this being very short unless you go through all 4 characters. So, I guess without further ado, with that somewhat long intro, with all the basics, this game came out in 2001 on the Game Boy Advance. We can play Sonic Advance. This Nintendo GameCube. Whoa! That's not good. This is great. This is a good start. Please stand by. Hey, at least we should get to see the Game Boy intro. Much better. I have no idea what the options are. So yeah, this was a big deal at the time. As you can see, Sonic Advance is rated down, and I believe it's called Katatana in Japanese. So we've got a few options. Versus mode, which you can't do. By the way, I'm playing this on a GameCube controller with the Game Boy player / the GameCube. If you have a Game Boy Advance to GameCube link cable, you could also play with a Game Boy Advance, which I could technically do because I believe I have somewhere along the lines of 3 or maybe between 3 and 5 GameCube controllers. But if I really wanted to, I could get a Game Boy Advance cable with one of the GameCube extension cables that I got a long time ago, which is actually how I'm able to stream. Because unfortunately, all 2 of my Wavebirds, I think I have 3 Wavebirds, all of them crapped out, and nowhere nearby can repair them. And buying Wavebirds is prohibitively expensive. And also the downside of using a Wavebird is that unlike the controllers of today, and even, like the Xbox 360 generation was really when it started, you can't, it doesn't have a rumble, even though this game doesn't have rumble, so that part doesn't matter, but I'm playing this on the GameCube controller, but even though I could technically get out a Game Boy Advance, put either some AA rechargeable batteries or use the Game Boy Advance SP, but I'm going to see how it goes with the GameCube controller. I've not really done this, but I haven't played this game in definitely not, it's not been 24 years, but let's say 20. Let's not delete. We're not deleting the game. I don't know why I had it like, I don't know. I had it easy. Oh well. So I do know that there is a code to have Tails join you as a computer player if you put in a code at the main menu. So it goes up, right, down, up, right, down, right, L, right, R, right, A. There we go. Got a bunch of zones. Neo Green Hill Zone Avatar. So pressing A and A again gives you a shield. It's kind of neat. That's pretty much the plot. It seems very simple. Damn it! Steal my rings! See, in the middle, that happens. I remember that. Irene, bonus. Secret basement. I did not mean to do that. I'm trying to go higher. I like this too. This one's a bit fun. Shit. want to point something out there. That's the invincibility music or a remix of it from the first Sonic game, which Sega doesn't like to use because that is actually copyrighted music from a band that they hired in Japan that was hired to make that that soundtrack, and it's because of that and other tunes. It's very rare to see that tune resurface in future Sonic games because that music is licensed and Sega, although not the worst when it comes to music and stuff, although that is debatable because we now know of apparently Sega not paying royalties for Live and Learn or believe other songs from Crush 40, the band that made that. But yeah, Sega definitely back then, possibly now, if they didn't want to spend the money, they definitely chose other options. I mean, take another example of the Sonic 3 music debacle. But yeah. Wow, music is on crack. Oh, fuck. The drummer went fucking crazy. intentionally didn't really like okay, so I actually do kind of like this. It's very jazzy. Let me lose my rings. Already at the boss. Okay, I remember this one I'm gonna lose my rings in. It's pretty tough. It's pretty tough. That's fine. That gets faster and continue at any point. Part of this boss music makes me reminds me of Jaws. This part specifically. Oh shit. It's taking longer to lose my rings, or Tails will just do that. See how it goes faster? Tails AI isn't that great, as you can see, he's trying to get to me, but unless I push the A button, it's just not going to. Oh, motherfucker! I can't save state. Fuck! Right down there. Ice Mountain Zone, Act 1. I actually do remember liking this level too. The music is, honestly, it's hit or miss, because that's how most Game Boy Advance games that aren't remakes are. With the exception of Golden Sun, because Golden Sun fucking rules. But this one is okay. The Game Boy Advance only had one sound chip system compared to the Super NES, which I believe had more, and it's just... Developers really worked their magic on this. Thanks, Steve. Slide down. That's from Sonic. Okay, I thought it was a dive. Like a bottomless pit, of which there are in this game. No! Okay, don't want to do that. Tails, no! I do remember this game being fun when I played it back in 2001 to see how I could constantly kill Tails. Because it is funny. They say as a I've tried to convince anyone that I'm not a sadist, but no, back when I was younger, if you control characters to die, I would definitely try to kill them. My sanity was not very high playing Eternal Darkness, because anything that moves motherfucker. I'd say this is better sounding than the first. First death of the day. I'm not dead. I say as I almost represent the ball. Boss time. This is tough because very easy. Shit. Know how to use it right, you can use tails to hit the button. That's the base. Angel Island Zone. Oh, I remember this one. There's a lot of bottomless pits here. You can die very easily. I don't even know if I want this song on speed. Crap. Shit, shouldn't have done that. Okay, never mind. I should have done that. I like this one. I like this tune better than the... Oh, fuck. I killed myself. We're not. I like this tune better than the first one. Get yourself right there. No, I don't want to be here. Oh, shit. Thanks. Whoa, okay. So thanks, Tails. Is that... Oh, Tails, buddy, why? Tails! I need that. No, you... Why? That wasn't supposed to happen. That I did not mean to do that. Okay. No, we don't. Alright. The game is like, no. No! Edgeman. It's Knuckles! It's even Robot Knuckles! It was actually kind of tough, from what I remember. Oh, I know this episode. Or did I? And Rocket Zone Act 1, we're almost done with this game. It's a very short game. Only added by the longevity to play with Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. I remember liking this too. This stood out. I was about to say that I just fucking died again. No, no. Also, if you take a close enough look, it's counting down. The time is counting down. It's not counting up. No, no, no. That's not a platform! This is bad. I could potentially die. gonna possibly die. Protest too much! Oh, okay. No way. I've lost so much time. awesome! It's high pace, which is what a Sonic game needs to have. In my opinion. Having played Sonic since 1991. Or at least since the very first video game. I thought I died. On the left. Not too much. I knew there's spiky traps. I just didn't want to be there. So I was like, on the left! There's no spikes there. Oh, fuck off. I hate this boss. I don't like this boss. Has great music. It's easier with Tails, honestly. Because Tails can be easier. Oh fuck, Tails! Why? Also, the rings don't bounce. If you lose all your rings, you can die from this. Yeah, that boss is really hard. And so, the final battle, or isn't. I like how it's a remix of Sonic 1's boss. I could have done that better. This is not a speedrun. I remember falling for that shit the first time. And now, a remix of the boss music from Sonic 2. Shoot the drill, right? Yep. Dead. Damn it! Stuck. It's not the end. Just Sonic turns supersonic. The Moon Zone. So, the first thought for anyone that may be listening to this or seeing this, and so thanks, is how on earth did you unlock Supersonic? I didn't see you do any special stages on the way of playing this. So, when I got this game way back in 2001, and I believe there was I think it was a Prima strategy guide. I believe Prima released strategy guides for both Sonic Advance 1 and 2, but never for 3. But in these games, just like the classic Sonic games, you get special stages. Except in this case, the special stage is a spring, and I believe it's one or no, it's definitely one, possibly two per level. And you have to go through like this. It's hard to explain, but you have to like go down this pipe and spin around on like a snowboard, a spaceboard to get rings. And back in the summer of 2001 when I, had more time than I do now, not only figuratively but literally since I'm 23 years 24 years older than I was when I first played this. Um yeah, the at some point I ended up getting the Chaos Emeralds, and I have to take a phone call. Those phone calls that you can't miss, right? So yes, long story short, there are various special stages or special springs rather in this game, and if you complete the challenge, you get the 7 Chaos Emeralds, which I already did, because there's no way that I was once I got. I mean, it is hard. It does get harder with each one special stage. I vowed that I would never ever like delete my save data and do it again. That said, if Sega ever decides to re-release the Sonic Advance trilogy on modern day platforms, then I would do it again. But I just remembered being a big pain in the ass, and it was only thanks to that strategy guide, which had the maps, which had like pixelated maps on them, to figure out where it was. So anyway, final battle, which if I recall, if you do it right, it's very short. Just right. There we go. I was like, there's no way I'm gonna find this level. But it is a bit tricky. Sonic Octo Extra. The few days later. Nibs developed this. They also developed Sonic the Hedgehog 4, which is, in my opinion, not that great. Composed and arranged by Dreams Come True. That's right. That's what I was saying. That's copyrighted. Copyrighted music that they need to get the rights for. Peter Moore, who then went on to join Xbox. I don't think he still works at Xbox. Man, that was a thing. Sega or Microsoft. Did this game come out in 2002? No, I'm pretty sure it was 2001. Let's take a look. I could be completely wrong. Okay, so this is interesting. I thought it was 2001. So the game came out in Japan in 2001, but the game came out here in February 3rd of 2002, with Sonic Adventure 2 Battle coming out in February 12th. So they released very, very closely together. So my final verdict on this game, because I'm really not going to play this again, because I already did 20 plus years ago, which is a phrase when it comes to a lot of GameCube games, is or Game Boy Advance games, is yeah, I definitely would recommend this. If you can, I'm not sure how much used copies of this game go for, but if they're reasonable, I would suggest getting it. Also, or emulation. And it is a shame that this and the other Sonic Advance games haven't been re-released in some form, considering how much Sonic loves re-releasing their Genesis and Dreamcast games. Poor Saturn barely gets any re-releases. Yeah, considering how they love Sega loves re-releasing their games, their classic games, it's kind of a shame that this one has been largely ignored. Um, With that said, it is not the worst Sonic game on the Game Boy Advance. That honor goes to the Sonic the Hedgehog 1 port, which is an absolute trash fire. I would never recommend playing that. You can watch it on YouTube for hilarious japes and results, but no, definitely would just never ever recommend it. Um, I will say that, yeah, if you just play through Sonic, you're not going to get your money's worth, which at the time was $30. But if you do play through every character and then which then unlocks Amy, and then uh, play through the game with Amy, and then take the time to find the Chaos Emeralds, then yeah, it absolutely becomes more than worth it. That said, is it my favorite of the Sonic Advance trilogy? The answer to that is no. That is Sonic Advance 2, which I will play at some point, maybe after I beat a long game, which has already been hinted at. Um, I'd say, in my opinion, I think it's Sonic Advance 2, then 1, then 3. It's not that I dislike 3, it's just it feels very different compared to the first two. Sonic Advance 2 is, I feel like Sonic Advance 1, but better. And Sonic Advance 3 is kind of like the Return of the Jedi of Sonic trilogies. Whereas I would say that Sonic 3 and Knuckles is literally the Sonic 3 of the movies, because Sonic 3, in terms of movies, is the best one. So, yeah, this means that this is a one off. Sonic Advance 2 will be played at some point. Can't say when, I don't know. But I do know that the next game that I'm going to stream will most likely be this Friday around this time. I don't know what it is yet, but I can say for certainty that it is not going to be Resident Evil, and it may not even be a mature rated title. I will say there's a chance that it's on the GameCube, unless Nintendo decides to surprise us with a Switch Online re-release. With no offense intended to Donkey Kong 94, not exactly something that would make me stop whatever I'm playing now to play that, even though it is a classic in its own right. Yeah, so that's it. That that is that is it. A nice little one-off between games, and the next game will be played at this rate on Friday night. I don't know what it is yet, but once I do decide, it will be up on stream.